Have you ever felt like your past could walk through a hospital door at any moment and change everything you thought you knew about your own life? Before I dive into this breathtaking story, I really want to know, where in the world are you watching us from today? Please, write the name of your city or country in the comments. We truly love knowing how far these stories travel across the globe. My name is Isabella, and I'm a 42-year-old nurse working the graveyard shift at one of the busiest trauma centers in Chicago. I moved here from a small, sun-drenched village in Calabria, Italy, over 20 years ago, carrying nothing but a medical degree and a heavy heart full of family secrets that I thought were buried thousands of miles away. People here know me for my thick accent, my unwavering discipline, and the way I can keep my cool when the emergency room turns into a war zone. But nothing could have prepared me for the night the sliding glass doors burst open and a group of elite soldiers rushed in, carrying a man who looked like he had stepped straight out of a nightmare. The air in the room suddenly turned cold, and for the first time in my career, the entire emergency room fell silent. In the center of the chaos was a man with deep, dark skin and a presence so powerful it commanded the room even as he bled through his tactical gear. This was Commander Marcus, a 38-year-old Navy SEAL whose reputation preceded him in whispers of classified missions and impossible bravery. He was covered in grime and blood, his breathing ragged, but as our eyes met, something inexplicable happened. Despite his agonizing injuries, Marcus pushed the paramedics aside, sat up with a grimace of pure steel, and delivered a crisp, formal military salute directly to me. I froze, my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Why would a high-ranking American commando salute a simple Italian nurse? As I stepped forward to check his vitals, his hand gripped my wrist with surprising strength. He leaned in and whispered a single word in perfect, ancient Italian, a word my father used to call me before he disappeared during a training exercise 2 decades ago. My breath hitched as I noticed his torn sleeve revealing a specific mark on his right shoulder, a perfect circle with a crimson dot in the very center, surrounded by lines that looked like an ancient mariner's compass. It was the exact same symbol I had seen on a dusty envelope hidden in my mother's jewelry box back in Italy. If this story has already gripped you this far, take a moment and subscribe to the channel right now, because what comes next is going to surprise you even more. Thank you for staying with me until now. It shows that you feel the same connection to these real-life mysteries that I felt when I lived through them. So please, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what I discovered next changed everything I believed about my father's death. As I began to cut away Marcus's tactical vest, the tension in the room was suffocating. 2 men in dark suits, clearly not hospital staff, stood by the door, watching my every move. The gossip among the other nurses started immediately. I could see them whispering in the hallways, wondering why a prestigious commander would only allow the Italian lady to touch him. I tried to maintain my professional focus, but my hands were shaking. Marcus wasn't just a patient. He was a living map to a past I had tried to outrun. He had a jagged shrapnel wound near his ribs, and as I cleaned the area, he didn't flinch. Instead, he watched me with an intensity that made me feel like he was reading my soul. He looked at my wrist, where I have a small moon-shaped scar from a childhood accident in the vineyards of Calabria, and he nodded slowly, as if confirming a secret. "You have your father's eyes, Isabella," he rasped, his voice sounding like gravel over silk. The room felt like it was spinning. My father was supposed to be a victim of a tragic accident, a ghost of the Mediterranean. Yet, here was a decorated American soldier, nearly 10 years younger than me, speaking of him as if they were brothers in arms. I realized then that my life in America, my career, even the specific hospital I worked at, might not have been a series of coincidences. I had spent years thinking I was a self-made woman who escaped a tragic legacy. But looking at the crimson dot on Marcus's shoulder, I felt like a pawn in a game I didn't even know was being played. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this story from? Write it down in the comments. It's incredible to see people from so many places following stories like this. The deeper I went into Marcus's care, the more the hospital felt like a fortress under siege. The administration was breathing down my neck, demanding to know why a Navy SEAL commander was refusing the chief of surgery and insisting on a floor nurse. The intrigue was reaching a breaking point. I lived in a modest apartment in the North Side, a quiet life of coffee and medical journals. but suddenly I was at the center of a military whirlwind. Have you ever gone through something like this? Where you had to hide the truth or remain silent about something huge just to keep your job or your safety? That's exactly how I felt as I noticed Marcus slipping a small metallic object into my palm while I was changing his bandage. It was a dog tag, but not his. It was old, tarnished, and bore a name that made my blood run cold. My father's name. The twist was that the date of final service stamped on the metal was only 5 years ago. 15 years after he was declared dead in Italy. My mind raced through the implications. If my father was alive all those years, who was Marcus to him? And why was he bringing this to me now, covered in the blood of a mission that clearly went sideways? The men in suits were closing in, and I knew I only had minutes before they separated us. Marcus leaned in, his dark skin glistening with sweat from the fever, and whispered a set of coordinates that led to a place I knew well. The old lighthouse near my childhood home. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My father hadn't died in an accident. He had been part of something so secret that it required a Navy SEAL to protect his daughter halfway across the world. The emergency room felt smaller by the second. The air thick with the smell of antiseptic and a metallic tang that only soldiers and trauma nurses truly recognize. I had lived 42 years believing my life was a quiet, predictable path of service, far from the sun-bleached stones of my Italian village. But looking at Marcus, I realized my entire American existence had been a carefully constructed lie. He was 38 years old, his dark skin glistening with a cold sweat that told me his body was fighting more than just physical wounds. As I leaned in to check his oxygen levels, he whispered a set of numbers that weren't just coordinates. They were the date of my mother's passing, coded into military shorthand. My hands trembled. How could this man, a stranger from an elite unit, know the most intimate details of my grief? He looked at me, his eyes full of a heavy, unspoken burden, and I saw the circle with the crimson dot on his shoulder move as he struggled to breathe. It was a compass, pointing me toward a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. If this story is shaking you as much as it shook me that night, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what I discovered in the next hour changed everything. Thank you for sticking with me this far. This shows that you feel the same way I did when I went through all of this, a connection that transcends borders. So subscribe and turn on notifications, because what comes next changes everything and reveals the true danger. The hospital administration finally pushed through the doors, accompanied by 3 men in suits who didn't care about medical protocols. They tried to usher me away, claiming Marcus needed a classified debriefing, but he wouldn't let go of my arm. His grip was a message. I was the only one he trusted. One of the men, a tall individual with a cold, analytical gaze, leaned over the bed and demanded the dog tag Marcus had given me. I felt the cold metal against my palm, hidden inside my glove. I lied. For the first time in my career, I looked a federal authority in the eye and told them I had found nothing. The tension was palpable in that room. Marcus gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Now I want to know from you. Where are you watching this story from? Write it in the comments. It's incredible to see people from so many places following stories like this and connecting with these moments of real decision-making. The gossip in the break room was a wildfire. My colleagues, nurses I had worked with for a decade, were looking at me with suspicion and fear. They saw the way the military responded to me, and the whispers started. Was Isabella more than just a nurse from Calabria? Was she an asset? A spy? I ignored them all, focusing on the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I managed to sneak back into Marcus's room during a shift change. He was weaker now, but his mind was sharp. He told me that the crimson dot on his shoulder was the mark of the Guardians, a unit my father had helped build in the shadows of the Cold War. The big twist, the one that stopped my heart, was when Marcus revealed that my father hadn't died 5 years ago either. He was still alive, held in a black site, because he refused to give up the location of a ledger that incriminated some of the very men standing in my hallway. Marcus hadn't come to the hospital by accident. He had been shot while trying to extract my father, and I was the only person who could authorize the medical clearance needed to move Marcus to a safe house where the rest of the plan could unfold. As the sun began to rise over the Chicago skyline, I realized I had a choice. I could remain the quiet Italian nurse, or I could become the daughter of a legend and finish what my father started. Marcus looked at me one last time before they moved him, his dark eyes reflecting a silent promise. He saluted me again. But this time, it wasn't for a superior officer. It was for a partner. You've heard my story, and you've seen how one night can shatter a lifetime of lies. Now, tell me. Write your answer in the comments below. This journey isn't over, and I need to know I'm not alone in this fight. Don't forget to watch the next recommended video to see how this mission ended and what happened when I finally reached that lighthouse in Italy.